The main problem, I will say, first of all, is that there's a lot of noise out there. Even professionals who work in my field, we're starting to get really confused with the program changes. And again, I haven't even started on how this impacts permanent residence routing for a lot of individuals. So the earlier you start researching your route, and that includes research on your own, but also includes admitting to yourself that you might need professional help.
Quick disclaimer. Any information provided on our YouTube channel is of a general nature and is for educational or informational purposes only. It's not intended as a substitute for professional advice or a guarantee of outcome. Should you decide to act upon any information on this channel, please proceed with caution. And viewers are advised to seek specific legal advice by contacting immigration lawyers that are active members of a law society in Canada or immigration consultants registered by ICCRC. If you want to make sure that you're up to date with the latest changes, please visit the Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada website. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're watching this, you're probably thinking about postgraduate work permit in Canada. You're trying to stay up to date with the changes. You might be stressed as well. So today, we're joined by Lou Dagzalan to help us out. If you're not aware, Lou is our trusted immigration lawyer here in Canada. He helped Bea and I with our PGWP. He helped us become permanent residents in under 2 years, and now we're citizens of Canada. All right, so Lou helped us with that, and he's taking time from his really busy schedule to just chat with you all today. All right, Lou, welcome back to the channel.
Thanks for having me again, Davy.
Thanks, Lou. Always a pleasure. So, Lou, today we're going to be talking about PGWP, Postgraduate Work Permit. There are many questions. There are many changes. I'll pass it on to you to give an overview of the recent changes about this.
Right. So, as if there weren't enough changes into the international student program, that all of us in the field are trying to keep our heads above water to keep up to date. I can't even imagine how it feels like if you're actually a student, whether you're already in Canada and outside Canada, how it feels, because this is probably something that created a little bit of an electric shock for a lot of folks who are, thinking of Canada, or those who are even already in Canada. But, on October the 4th of this year, of 2024, they announced several changes to the post-graduation permit program in terms of eligibility. I personally knew that this is a change that was coming because they have been very public about their intention to actually reform the international student program, and they did mention that the PGWP program will be targeted. And B, there's been some consultations back and forth between the government, mainly from the minister's office to the deputy minister's office. I'm actually a member of an organization called the Canadian Immigration Lawyers Association, and I'm point person for the International Students program. And we've had the opportunity to liaise with the deputy minister for immigration, and she was gracious enough to hear our points, and we argued and lobbied essentially that these rules should not be retroactive, and we were very happy to see that the rules were not going to be retroactive. But of course, changes create problems and tensions, and people are anxious. So what I've done is created a sort of like a shortcut on how to understand this, and I'd like to share it to you. And I think I can do it in under 2 minutes. And Davy, if you want, you can put a timer here and see if I can actually honor that. Let's see.
Let's
So,
do it.
October the 4th, they made some announcements. And the key takeaway at that point is that starting that same day when the announcement was made, October the 4th, 2024, every applicant for a PGWP must submit, together with their PGWP application, a valid language test score. If you're studying bachelor's and up, you need a minimum of CLB 7 for your language test. And if you've completed a diploma and lower, meaning 2 years and under, you need to have at least CLB 5. So that's immediately after the announcement, October the 4th, 2024. Now, some of the key takeaways as well is that study permit applicants applying before November 1st, 2024. So those who are theoretically submitting their applications, let's say October 15th, 2024, the old rules apply plus the language requirements for PGWP eligibility, the one that we just talked about. Now, for those applying for a study permit on or after November 1st, 2024, they must meet the following. Number one, university students finishing a bachelor's, master's, or a PhD. All fields are eligible. So you are eligible for PGWP. Number two, university students finishing all other programs, let's say a 1-year certificate, a 2-year certificate, your field must meet the eligibility requirements. Number three, if you're finishing your program from an eligible college, for example, a publicly funded college, you must also meet the field eligibility requirements. Now, regarding the field eligibility requirements, IRCC has identified 966 fields. And if you go to their website, I'll give you the link so you can check out the link in the video description. They are basically divided into these categories. Healthcare, they need to be healthcare related. They're of STEM, or science, technology, engineering, and math. In the trades, related to agriculture and related to transportation. That's basically it. So the critical date to understand here is October the 4th and November the 1st.
Thank you, Lou. I'll check if that's 2 minutes. I'll give you a timer there. But let's talk about, because the really big thing now is the language requirements. You mentioned it's right now it's happening. So I got two questions there.
Sure.
How will the recent changes to PGWP program, particularly the introduction of language proficiency requirements, how will that impact international students who are already studying in Canada?
Right. So it will affect you if you haven't yet applied for a PGWP at the time of the announcement. That means that if you were to submit your PGWP application on October the 5th, which is one day after the announcement, or even on the 4th, really, you need to submit a valid language test. That means that if you finish the program at the bachelor's and up, you need to submit a valid language test with CLB 7 minimum. And for programs below that, meaning at colleges, diplomas and certificates, for example, 2 years, 3 years, 1 year, you'll need CLB 5 as a minimum. So that's generally how the new language requirements affect you.
Okay. And for, let's say you don't need the CLB 5, is it as simple, quote unquote, simple as keep taking it until you get a high score? Is that what it means?
Here's the thing, Davi. So I think it should be a fairly reasonable ask from, it should be considered as a fairly reasonable ask from IRCC to require CLB 5. Why do I say that? Because most colleges to get a letter of acceptance anyway do require that you have a minimum of CLB 5. And a lot of them actually require CLB 6 and 7, depending on the field that you're in. Most universities, any respectable university, really, I would say, would ask for CLB 7 and above anyway. So, those who are actually like working in fields where language is your bread and butter, these are your tools. Say, for example, you're in communications or law, for example, I would not be surprised if they were requiring a CLB 9, to be honest. So if you're a student, this shouldn't be a hard thing. And the other thing to think about this is this. You will eventually need to take those tests. So I don't think, it should be something of a source of a pain. Yes, it's a pain because you have to do it right away. And you might be busy and you might be in the middle of preparing for your final exams. But that's okay. Like, this is something that you can pace. You just need to take a deep breath and plan. But of course, this is an additional financial burden. And why do I say that? Even if you'll need it anyway for your PR application down the road, it's because if you take the language exam too early, keep in mind that these language exams expire after 2 years in terms of validity for permanent residence application. What if, year one passes by while you're holding on to the work permit and you still haven't figured out your permanent residence route? That means that your language test will be expiring in about a year. So you'll have to retake it again. So, it does add a financial strain, but from a perspective of will I meet the requirements for the language, I think you should be able to if you're already studying in Canada. So I don't think we should be splitting hairs in that regard. But with respect to adding a financial burden, yes, I will sympathize with the applicants for sure.
Got it. And just basic question here. It's not limited to IELTS, right? Can you talk about that real quickly? Because some students think, oh man, just IELTS, it's so hard. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. So for English specifically, There are several other tests that are available. So you mentioned IELTS, which is typically the thing that people run to when they're thinking of their language test. It's because it's the most readily available test around the world. It's universally recognized. It's by the British Council, and the IDP essentially, and testing centers are not far in between. But there are other options such as CELPIP, or the Canadian English Language Proficiency Index Program. You can take this test too. In Canada, it's quite abundant. It's easy to find a testing center for CELPIP. Outside Canada, it could be a little trickier. So that's is why there's a proclivity for IELTS, shall we say. But of course, there's also a third alternative at this point. It's called the Pearson Test of English. That's a recent addition. In fact, it was just added sometime this year as a test that will be acceptable.
Thanks, Sue. Thank you so much. And again, check the description below if you're watching this. And before we shift gears, we partnered up with Lou and his team at LJD Law to give you a special discount for a consultation session. So I highly recommend this. If you're already stressed, if you're not sure what to do what we did. Have that consultation session with Lou for even just for peace of mind. So the original price is $300, but use our special link in the description below and you'll get $100 off. So that's $200 for a consultation session, so you can be guided and just not waste all the money you've spent here, or the money you're going to spend going to Canada.
Right.
Lou, for that session, what can they expect? Because I know some of my friends are thinking, I'm not really sure if I want to spend $200 to talk to Lou.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Can you tell us more about what to expect there?
So these consultations really will depend on what you need, what your immigration needs are. These days, what we're seeing is a lot of people are trying to map out or have a conversation about their chances for permanent residence. We see a lot of international students or those who are holding postgrad work permits, seeking help and advice on what to do to get from point A to B, that is from temporary residence to permanent residence, in order to graduate, so to speak, from temporary residence to permanent residence. We do a lot of PR pathwaying these days, Davi. I think you came to us with the same question. In fact, you were about to finish your studies and you came to us to seek advice on what to do in terms of figuring out your PR pathway. We set out a plan, and then, of course, the plan was kind of like set aside because there was a special program that was launched. But the good thing about that is we've already talked about your fundamentals, and at that point, you were ready. You were one of the few people in my bucket of clients at the time who had all the documents necessary. You moved heaven and earth. And I'm very appreciative of the reception of the advice. But look at you now. You're a citizen.
No, 100%. And guys, if you're watching this, just to backtrack a bit, when Bea and I were about to graduate, again, I'm all about peace of mind, guys. I'm not gonna waste everything, time and money I spent here just to figure things out on my own. So I did that consultation session with Lou, and what's great about that is, again, he already prepared us for everything. He told us, okay, this is what happens next. And of course, Lou is a lawyer. He's amazing. He knows what's coming up. He knows, like, oh, there's gonna be a special program, or this is gonna be the changes. We have to prepare you for it. All right. So no brainer to get that consultation session with Lou. Again, check the link in the description below. Okay. So Lou, let's shift gears now. Let's talk about what most people are stressing about. It's postgraduate work permit, PGWP. Before, it was, during my time, it was so simple. Just graduate, then apply for PGWP. Simple as that. Now there are some restrictions, as you mentioned. Okay. So let's look at this for two lenses. The first lens is for those students who are already in Canada, already submitted their study permits before the November 1st changes happen. First question is, how do the new PGWP eligibility requirements affect their ability to apply for the work permit once they graduate, considering they enrolled before the changes? Basically, what's going to happen to these people?
Yeah, it's excellent framing there, Davi, because I would say that if they're already in Canada, they were probably thinking of how does how does the announcement actually change their eligibility for PGWP. The short version of this long story is that If they haven't submitted yet, as if to this video's posting, obviously even before that, they would need to include a language requirement that is appropriate for their program level. Again, if they study bachelor's and up, they need CLB 7 at least. If it's below bachelor's, typically a college diploma of 2 years or a certificate, you need a CLB 5. But that's also a good question if you're an international student already in Canada and you had already submitted a PGWP application before the announcement. The question would be, do you need to update your application and submit language tests? The answer is no. The announcement only covers folks who were about to submit as of the date of the announcement for the language exams.
Got it. And for students, and this is a tricky one, for students currently completing programs that may not align with the newly eligible fields of study, first question is, will they be affected? Like, again, for
Yeah,
example, I have a friend, she's taking up business marketing
right.
as she's about to graduate in December, hasn't
Mhm.
applied for PGWP yet. Can she still do it, or what's gonna happen there?
That's a good question because you're thinking, oh, well, I'm submitting my PGWP application after November 1st, right? Let me ask you this question. Your friend, did they apply for a study permit before November 1st, 2024?
Yes.
So that means that the old rules still apply to them plus the language test. So, in a nutshell, the rules actually only cover those who would apply for a study permit on November 1st and after. So
Mm.
those rules specifically cover those students, and specifically, these students need to be pursuing one of the 966 fields of study listed on IRCC's website. But
Mhm.
generally speaking, again, they're broken down into healthcare, STEM, trade, agriculture, trades, and transportation.
Got it. Thanks for clarification. So again, for students currently completing programs that are not, oh, let's backtrack a bit. For students who apply after November 1st and
Right.
they plan on taking programs that are not part of PGWP,
Mm, good question.
do they have alternatives, or can they switch courses, or is it
Yes.
basically, yeah, I mean, it's a loaded question. Tell us more about that.
That's a good one. It's a really good one, in my opinion. So that's very interesting in a sense that what if they started in Canada? They were in an eligible program. Their program was eligible for a PGWP, which means that they could apply for PGWP plus satisfying all the requirements, including the language requirements. That's fine. But then they decide in the middle of their program, oh, I want to change courses. I want to switch a program into something else. And let's say they chose business and communication. The rules aren't very clear in that regard, but my conservative read of the new rules is that your program at the time of PGWP eligibility will be assessed on when you apply for your study permit. And does it include the initial study permit? I don't think it does because there's no specific language that says that the old rules will apply for you because your original study permit was applied for before so and so date. That's in contrast to the open work permit for spouses, announcement where they said that yes, you can extend this work permit as long as when you applied originally, you had qualified at the time of application. There's no language like that in this application, so I would be very conservative. So going back to your example, so let's say your friend, let's name her Alice. She started out with a nursing, a diploma, 2 years, a practical nursing diploma, and said, "Oh, you know what? I want to do business marketing." And then after 1 year of it, decides to change programs and had to apply for a new study permit, for example, if they needed to. Let's just say hypothetically they did. Would Alice be eligible for a PGWP under the new rules? If she applied for a new study permit after November 1st, 2024, then I would say yes. She would not qualify for this. But let me be very clear there. If she had decided to change her program and then apply for a new study permit on November 1st and after, then the new rules apply to her. Therefore, she is not eligible for a PGWP because her program of study is not one of the 966 that I mentioned earlier, right? But if the second part of your question, it's just super loaded, I will say, and very interesting, is that if they're changing programs, what I would advise in this situation, if they were to book that, special consultation that you mentioned earlier, I would say to them, well, if you're shifting, then you should probably shift programs to a program that's actually eligible for PGWP, right? Um, but then let me throw you a wrench here. This is very interesting. What if this person is traveling with, let's say, a spouse, and that spouse actually had an open work permit? Would they be eligible for an open work permit as well when you get your new study permit? Well, it depends. Are you, as a principal student studying at the PhD level, a master's level, a bachelor's level, pursuing one of the enumerated professional or occupational fields that are eligible under the spousal open work permit? If the answer is yes, then your spouse is fine. But if you choose to go to another program, let's say 1 year program, that yes is eligible for a PGWP, but then renders your spouse ineligible for an open work permit, well, your spouse can apply to extend their open work permit. So there's a little bit of a crossing of wires with these programs. So I'd
Yeah.
be very, very careful. So like if you take one program, look at the changes, and you sit down and take the time to actually read them, you can understand them. The problem, starts when all of these changes start to cross wires with each other. And don't get me started how it impacts your PR route as well. That can
Mm.
get really messy.
Guys, if you just listen to that whole bit there, like, to be honest, it's getting to a point where there's a lot of technicalities. It's just so complicated now. Again, I personally, if I were in your shoes, I would not do this alone. There are a lot of factors in here. There's a lot of changes. So again, highly recommend just book the consultation with Lou. No brainer. Get that peace of mind. Be guided properly, and take it from there. All right. But I would not do it yourselves with this. Watch some vloggers, even some of our past vlogs. Don't even reference those, just because
Honestly,
this is
there's still a
changing
lot
a
of good
lot.
content there, I will say. But, in a sense that even professionals who are working in this field, who actually have their ear on the ground, and we talk to people at the government, for example, we've lobbied that this new rule not be retroactive, for example. Thankfully, they listen to us. Yeah, even we're getting confused with the changes, just so you know. So it's not so much of a, hey, I want to get more consultations. Honestly, like each case is unique. It seems very simple at first, but you need to be very careful.
100%, 100%. Like, I was approached by, we're getting sidetracked a bit, but I was approached by uh one of our, like, what a friend of a friend who was just saying, okay, I have so many questions. You think I can just, do this myself, just research and do it myself? And I highly recommend not to, unless you want to take the risk. But it's just really messy right now. We're in a messy situation. So I would speak to a professional like Lou. Okay. So again, check the description below. Lou, let's shift gears a bit. Let's talk about for aspiring international students. Okay. Um, I know you've already talked about this earlier, but what are the implications for students whose programs do not fall within the newly defined PGWP eligible fields? Are there alternatives? Let's say, I'm a student, my background in the Philippines is marketing. Of course, I want to take marketing in Canada. Can I still get
Yeah.
PGWP? What are my alternatives? Or is it basically no hope for me? How does that look like?
I mean, yeah, that's a really interesting question. I mean, if you're in marketing, say for example, if you're just like planning your future, and again, we do these in our consultations as well, by the way, just to, give you an idea. If you were to come to me and you're a communication specialist, Davi, you work with data, you work with FGDs, for example, you talk to people, you analyze like numbers. I would say, hey, are you by any chance interested in data analytics? Because that might fall under STEM, for example. And that's one of the broad categories that are included. And it might be possible for you to find a program that blends communication and data analytics, right? That opens the pathway to PGWP eligibility. Or say, for example, you're pursuing a master's program instead. I mean, remember what I said earlier when I mentioned that, university students finishing bachelor's, master's, PhD, all fields would still be eligible for PGWPs. So I think it might not be a question of despairing that, oh, I'm in business or I'm in communication, but rather you should also think at the vertical aspect of it. And the way I describe it is like horizontally, these are like the selection, the gamut of programs that are available, right? Like if you're in communication, you're in business, you're in health sciences, agriculture, etc. But there's also the vertical aspect. Are you studying at the collegiate level for the diploma? Or are you studying at a master's level at a university? So if you really want to stick to communication, maybe do a master's in communication, for example, right? Which then makes you eligible for PGWP. And then on top of it, if you're bringing your spouse or common law partner, it might be possible for this person to join you in Canada. Remember, right now, open work permits for spouses, common law partners, still possible if you're studying at the PhD and master's level and for select bachelor programs.
Gotcha. So there's, from what I'm hearing, there's definitely not just more research and more strategy involved right now. If I'm applying for PGWP after November 1st, of course, there's just so many factors to consider. What
Mm.
would be your main tip for that? Aside from consultation, of course, that's a given. What would be your main tip for um people right now who are applying for PGWP after the November 1st changes happen?
Huh. Right. The main problem, I will say, first of all, is that there's a lot of noise out there from YouTubers, from TikTok, from Facebook, all the groups. They're all saying a lot of background white noise, in my opinion, about how these programs work, about these changes, how they affect people. Um, in my opinion, it's still going to be ultimately a case per case basis. But there is a way to understand these programs if you take the time to actually dive deep. And it goes to your point earlier about like peace of mind, Davi. If you want peace of mind on this, if you just want to make sure that you're assured, then don't be shy seeking professional help. Maybe it's time to admit that you're let's say your headache might actually need a visit to the doctor, that it might not just be a simple headache anymore. And as I mentioned, this is prefaced by the fact that even professionals who work in my field, we're starting to get really confused with the program changes. And again, I haven't even started on how this impacts permanent residence routing for a lot of individuals. So the earlier you start researching your route, and that includes research on your own, but also includes admitting to yourself that you might need professional help, the more chances that you're able to actually achieve your end goals here. If your end goal is to spend more time in Canada or potentially even stay in Canada as a permanent resident and eventually become a citizen. So, yeah, like do your research, but admit when you need to hang the towel.
100%. 100%. Couldn't have said it better. Lou, we'll wrap it there. Again, we have the links below from the actual IRCC website. I'll put that in. We'll put the special consultation link as well. Again, guys, this is a tricky time. Make sure to do your research, make sure to strategize properly. Again, on the preface of if you want to stay here in Canada to actually get your postgraduate work permit. All right. Lou, I appreciate your time. That was very insightful. I'm very sure we're going to chat again. There's going to be more changes coming up with what's happening right now. I wouldn't be shocked.
Yes,
But thanks for your time. Really appreciate you. We'll see you again next time.
I was happy to be here. Thanks for the invitation. Take care.
That's you. Bye.